What's up, you guys, and welcome to another episode of The Variety Views. I'm your host, The Variety Vendor, and I'm here to rebook Jinder Mahal's title reign. Not just his title reign, but his entire run on Smackdown. And here's the thing about Jinder Mahal, okay? Now, the idea was to make a new star, a new Indian star, for them to break into the Indian market. Because I do believe the WWE Network is now available in India, and not just that, but they planned to do an Indian tour that would span around, they wanted 2 days. They had 2 dates, but I think that if that was a success, then they were going to come back somewhere in mid 2018. Because of course, if it makes a lot of money, you do want a return. Now, that Indian date got scaled down to 1 because Jinder Mahal was an absolute fail in the main event. So now they're trying to, rehab everything that they did. They did wrong by re-elevating Shinsuke Nakamura, by putting the title back on AJ Styles, shifting gears, and scaling Jinder Mahal back to the mid-card. And to me, I feel like that's kind of working backwards. Because I'm of the belief that if somebody becomes a main eventer, then you shouldn't ever put him back in the mid-card. However, there are exceptions. And with Jinder, I feel like he should have started as a mid-carder. Because when he was introduced, I thought he was great. I thought Jinder was great. I thought he had a lot of potential. When he showed up in 2012, I think it was 2012, he was supposed to be Great Khali's sister's husband, so his brother-in-law. He was supposed to be his brother-in-law, and he was supposed to be this guy that was helping the Great Khali's family, because the Great Khali's family are, really poor, and he was pretty much, so he was like, you either do my bidding or I will, I will divorce your sister and I will, let you go back to your poverty state, which I could not, I did not believe 1 second, because first of all, Great Khali was a movie star before entering the WWE. He was in The Longest Yard, so, and he was in a few, Hindi movies later on, and also the dude was making a lot of money, so much so that he was an icon in India. So, when I heard about them putting the championship on Jinder, was because of the whole India tour. I was like, why couldn't you bring back Great Khali? Because, hey, if Great Khali came back tomorrow and won the championship, and he went to India, he would have been greeted like a freaking, conquering hero. And imagine him against Triple H, in India, how much money that would get. So much more. But that's not the whole point of this video. The whole point of this video is to rebook Jinder Mahal's beginning on Smackdown, because I feel like once he got drafted to Smackdown, that's like the whiteout. That's like erasing everything that he was doing on Raw, that was jobbing every single week, and doing something new on Smackdown. So here's how I would do it. First off, continue his feud with Mojo Rawley for a little bit, because, Mojo eliminated Jinder, and you can do something on SmackDown, and you have Jinder Mahal defeat Mojo Rawley. Then we do a qualifying match, because Randy Orton just ended his feud with Bray Wyatt, and that was way worse than Jinder Mahal's title reign. A lot of people say, like, oh my god, Jinder Mahal's title reign was like the worst thing of 2017. I don't think so. It's one of the worst, but because of the trickle effect, it affected other things in a very negative manner. So, what I would do is, I would have Jinder Mahal win a qualifying match for Backlash. And Backlash's main event would be a Fatal 4-Way. Now, of course, 2017 was filled with frickin' multi-man matches. And it's something that I really hated from this year. But I think this makes sense. Now, you just did the Superstar Shakeup, right? And you've got Kevin Owens, who is the U.S. champion, and he can say, like, the fact that I have this championship and the fact that I'm owed a Universal title rematch, and I didn't get it, but I'm on Smackdown, so that kind of gets me in the fast track to the WWE title, and it's a championship that I want to hold. It's one of the main singles titles that I haven't won yet. So Kevin Owens goes for the WWE Championship against Randy Orton Backlash. So he's put in there, not just because he's owed a rematch, but also he's the U.S. Champion. So that kind of gets him a bye. AJ Styles hasn't gotten his number one, one-on-one championship match since losing the title. So he's put in this, in this Fatal 4-Way. But also, you can have AJ beat somebody, in the meantime, just so that he can prove once and for all that he does indeed deserve to be in the main event, and in contention for the WWE title. So he's put in the Fatal 4-Way. He can beat, it doesn't matter, anybody. And Jinder Mahal defeats Sami Zayn to qualify for the Fatal 4-Way. Sami Zayn can say also that he wants to get his hands on Kevin Owens, and not just that, but also win the WWE title before Kevin Owens does, because that's the championship that he and Owens have been thriving for since starting this journey to the WWE. And you can have all the story kind of building up in the background. So you got these little intermingling storylines going on. Going to Backlash, Jinder Mahal wins the championship, and it's that big shocker because nobody thought that Jinder was going to win. They thought that Randy Orton was either going to retain or AJ Styles was going to win, or maybe in the 1% thinks that Kevin Owens is going to be a dual champion. But nobody ever thought that Jinder Mahal was going to walk out as champion. He is the dark horse of this match, and he wins the title. So he wins the title, goes to Money in the Bank. Jinder retains again against Randy Orton. That's where you debut the Singh brothers. Then you go to Battleground, and Jinder says that this indeed is a battleground. Since the moment I stepped in here, the deck has been stacked against me, and ever since I won this championship, I became your championship. I not only have Randy Orton against me, I don't only have the entire locker room against me because they don't believe that I'm that I deserve this championship, but I've got the entire WWE universe against me. So at Battleground, I've got some backup, and we all think that it's just the Singh brothers, right? And he goes to Battleground to face Randy Orton because, hey, Randy Orton lost the match and Money in the Bank, but it's because of the Singh brothers. Randy Orton says, if you're going to have, the Singh brothers, I've got somebody that is, that's going to be there to hold them off, so that it's just going to be you and I, and it's John Cena. That's where you bring out John Cena. John Cena and Randy Orton are unlikely, an unlikely team, because that's something that I really wanted to see somewhere down the line. I really want to see Randy Orton and John Cena as a tag team. I would love for that to happen. So have John Cena be, Randy Orton's, manager at Battleground, And, in the go-home episode, you can have the Randy Orton and John Cena against the Singh brothers. And who would show up? Great Khali. Great Khali shows up, and he puts Randy Orton and John Cena through, Randy Orton or John Cena, doesn't matter. It put John Cena through the announcer's table because it's like, okay, Randy Orton's all on his own at Battleground. Will John Cena show up? And then at Battleground, John Cena's got his ribs taped up, and it's Randy Orton versus Jinder Mahal. Little back and forth going on, stuff happening in the background, and you have Jinder Mahal go over. This would lead to SummerSlam, and I would like to see Jinder Mahal face John Cena at SummerSlam, actually, because I think John Cena can lose, and it wouldn't affect him one iota. It would be a big match. It would be a selling match rather than having John Cena in the opener, and then he's like, "See you later, guys." Gets on the first flight out. No, have his star power be used to elevate somebody. So have Jinder Mahal go over John Cena, because that's something that the Jinder Mahal title reign didn't have, and that is strong matches. What really memorable match did Jinder Mahal have during his title reign, besides losing the championship or even winning it at Backlash? And that wasn't even a memorable match. It was, the memorable thing about it was the ending. So have Jinder defeat Cena for the WWE title, and the idea being is that, like, leading up to SummerSlam, have Jinder do an open challenge. Let him say that I've become the face of WWE right now, and guess what? I should have been the one that was the successor of John Cena, because I can do John Cena better than John Cena. So I'm going to do an open challenge, and I'm going to give an opportunity to a lot of guys in the back that really deserved it. So he's kind of playing sort of a babyface, but at the same time he's cheating to win. And not only that, but he's talking down to a lot of those guys because he feels that he's above them and they have no chance in beating him. So he's facing guys like Kalisto. He's facing guys like James Ellsworth. Guys that he knows he can beat. But in those matches, he's barely inching out a win. But, it's a very decisive win, but at the same time there's a lot of hope spots, kind of like when Triple H had the championship and he would slowly, there are moments in the match where he would almost lose to a guy like Eugene or a guy like the Hurricane or a guy like Maven. I remember those matches where I was like, holy shit, shit, he won. Or a guy like Shelton Benjamin. I remember those matches and it was so great seeing that. Go back and watch a match in 2000 with him and Taka Michinoku, where Taka looked like a freaking main eventer. A freaking light heavyweight facing Triple H, the top heel of the company, and he almost beat the champ. I want to see something like that with Jinder, because I do think that he has that in him. And that's one thing that I think that a Jinder Mahal title reign would be so great and so memorable, is the fact that it would elevate a lot of other guys. Because hey, if Jinder can be champion, then anybody can be champion. Use that to your advantage. Have a guy like James Ellsworth or Kalisto or a freaking Tyler Breeze or freaking Fandango. Have him come close on beating Jinder, but Jinder wins at the end. Just snags the rug from under them. So, this would do a lot of great. And also Mojo Rawley, because it makes a lot of sense, because Mojo beat Jinder in Jinder's first match on Smackdown. So you can go back to that. And the fact that Mojo has Jinder's number and he can beat Jinder. And, this would go back to that. So you have all this going on. Jinder beats John Cena at SummerSlam. And then at Hell in a Cell, you have Jinder Mahal against Randy Orton yet again. But this time it's inside Hell in a Cell. So, and leading up to this, Randy Orton would beat, both Singh brothers. So that means he gets to pick the stipulation for Hell in a Cell. And it is inside Hell in a Cell to keep the Singh brothers out. And Jinder wins. He wins clean. Have him beat Randy Orton clean. Let him do the Colossus. onto steel steps and have him pin Randy Orton right then and there. And it would be a believable win and would be a strong win for Jinder Mahal. And as this is going on, Jinder is still doing the open challenge thing. He's beating guys like Sami Zayn. He's beating guys like Ty Dillinger. He's beating guys like Bobby Roode, but because of interference from Baron Corbin, because Bobby Roode would be feuding with Baron Corbin. But you're still giving Jinder Mahal these wins instead of having Jinder Mahal be on the wayside, because Jinder needs to prove himself as being the leader of SmackDown rather than, oh, I have a championship, so that makes me a main eventer. No, it doesn't make you a main eventer. You make the championship main event material. But if you don't, then the title gets brought down in prestige. So, this would lead to Survivor Series. You don't do Jinder versus Brock Lesnar, although that was a match that I would have rather have seen rather than Brock and AJ, even though that Brock and AJ was a really good match. I would have loved to have seen Jinder versus Brock. I think that would have been a fun match. Imagine Brock Lesnar just suplexing the shit out of the Singh brothers and Jinder and even Great Khali if he comes back. That would have been awesome. But no, we didn't get that. Instead, what I would do is have Jinder's Team SmackDown, let him captain the team, and let him say, like, I am, the leader of this team, and blah, 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 and you have Team Raw. Brock Lesnar being the leader of Team Raw, but at the same time, Brock has no allegiance to anybody but to his own. So, whomever is in Team Raw, Brock gets eliminated via DQ or whatever, and whoever is going to face Brock Lesnar at Royal Rumble pushes Brock Lesnar and is like, oh, what are you doing? You got yourself DQ'd. So Brock Lesnar turns on his team, beats the shit out of that guy, whether it's Roman Reigns or Braun Strowman, suplexes the shit out of him, and puts him through a table or whatever, and then leaves. Then Jinder capitalizes and pins that person. So he wins for his team. Thus, SmackDown is seen as the superior brand, and Jinder Mahal is the superior champion because he is the sole survivor. And you have Jinder Mahal stand tall rather than that clusterfuck of a finish to Survivor Series, one of the worst endings that I've ever seen. Instead, you have Jinder Mahal as champion, and then on SmackDown he's like, you see, I'm the champion, and I've let you to fruition. I'm the sole survivor, and nobody in that locker room is anything without me. SmackDown is absolutely nothing without me. So you have that episode of SmackDown where, right after Survivor Series, Jinder Mahal has his huge celebration and becomes the crown jewel of SmackDown, basically. And then you have the entire SmackDown roster come out and beat the shit out of Jinder Mahal, making Jinder Mahal the most despised guy on SmackDown. That's something that I wish we would have seen on SmackDown. Think of all the times that Vince McMahon had his comeuppance. Think of all the times that Triple H had his comeuppance during his quote-unquote reign of terror. Remember all those times where Evolution got their asses kicked by the entire Raw roster, eating finishers from everybody. I would love to see that, This would cement Jinder Mahal being that top heel, not only of SmackDown, but of the entire company. Then you would go on to Clash of Champions, and this is something that I really want to see, because of Clash of Champions, I always think of two champions going head-to-head. No matter what it is, whether it's the U.S. champion and the WWE champion facing the tag team champions, or you can even have that, and the women's champion would be the special guest referee. Imagine that. That would be huge. An all champions match, in Clash of Champions. There should always be a theme to those. Now, instead of all titles are going to be on the line. Well, it's kind of like that in every pay-per-view, so it doesn't make any sense. So Clash of Champions, we would have two champions going up against each other, Baron Corbin and Jinder Mahal, U.S. champion versus WWE champion. Okay, to some people, that might be as boring as watching paint dry. But, to me, I think there's a lot of potential of that, and Baron Corbin did show a lot of potential at Survivor Series as a babyface. So I think in this match, Baron Corbin can work well as a babyface, as a U.S. champion, and this would kind of be the arrival of Baron Corbin to finally, being elevated, and that's something that needs to be used in Jinder Mahal's title reign. And I think it would be very enjoyable to see Baron Corbin kind of playing that babyface and beating the shit out of the Singh brothers, beating Jinder Mahal a little bit, but the ending would be Jinder Mahal going over, of course, because he's the WWE champion. And also, during this time, Jinder Mahal will still be doing the open challenge thing. Beating guys, left and right, and still, going over. Then we go to Royal Rumble 2018. And this is where I would end the Jinder Mahal title reign and have AJ Styles win the WWE title, because as much as I like Jinder Mahal, and I don't really, absolutely adore him, I do think that he can be a good pawn for bigger things. This is where you scale back Jinder Mahal a little bit, because WrestleMania, I think the WWE Championship should be around the waist of somebody that is going to deliver A+ material. And AJ Styles is that guy. That's where you give AJ Styles the WWE title. And this is where it goes full circle, because it's the same pay-per-view where AJ Styles lost the championship. And Jinder Mahal can say that, saying that, hey, you never won at Royal Rumble. You lost, your debut in the Royal Rumble, and it was for the championship. You lost the championship at Royal Rumble last year. So what makes you think that you can finally win the championship this year? And AJ says, because I'm freaking AJ Styles. Go on to Royal Rumble. AJ Styles wins the title, thus ending his losing streak, which is 2 years. But still, he finally overcomes that, beats Jinder Mahal, wins the WWE title. I think that would be a great moment. We don't see Jinder for a little bit until Fastlane, and then AJ Styles retains his title again against Jinder Mahal. So you got two great matches, because I do feel like they do have good chemistry. So AJ, retains against Jinder Mahal. Then we go to WrestleMania. Now the match that I want to see at WrestleMania is Jinder Mahal against Baron Corbin for the U.S. title. Now, you're probably wondering, Mr. Vendor, didn't you say that you are against main eventers going back to the mid-card? There are exceptions, and Jinder Mahal is one of them. Now, Jinder has made himself into being a main eventer, okay? So he can hop back and forth. However, what I see him as is not the top guy. Or, I see him being a main eventer if it's a multi-man match. If it's an Elimination Chamber match, if it's Money in the Bank, if it's Royal Rumble, something along those lines. Fine, you do see him, as a main eventer in that aspect. But as far as one-on-one, I do see him more as being the guy that is the buffer to the main event. The guy that readies the mid-carder before they're elevated to the main event. So he's kind of like Jake Roberts or Rick Rude or Mr. Perfect or Owen Hart, that kind of guy. The guy that whenever somebody's coming up and is about to face the main eventer, Jinder Mahal gets him ready, has a little bit of a feud with him, and that person goes over and then goes to the main event. While Jinder Mahal gets wins over up and comers and the upper carders and jobbers and stuff like that. So that's how you keep Jinder Mahal protected, but you don't have him unbeatable. You let him lose when it matters, so that you keep him strong. You keep him strong enough to be believable enough to be put back into the main event. So the idea being for WrestleMania is that Baron Corbin never beat Jinder, and you can go back to Clash of Champions. They had the match there, but Baron Corbin says, even though that I lost that match, I am the superior champion because I still got my title. That's the whole story going into this. And Jinder goes, well, I still beat you, and I will prove to you that I'm the superior champion when I take the title away from you at WrestleMania. And, you know, a little bit going back and forth, but the end game is Jinder Mahal taking the U.S. title off of Baron Corbin. So Baron Corbin gets elevated later on after this feud once he goes to Raw. Because that's how I would do it. Right after WrestleMania, have another shakeup and switch Baron Corbin to Raw so that Baron Corbin doesn't have to lose another match against Jinder. Keep Jinder on, on SmackDown, or you can have Jinder go to Raw, keep Baron Corbin on SmackDown, and switch the Intercontinental title back to SmackDown. Because to me, that's the championship that should always be on SmackDown, the Intercontinental title. The United States Championship, the U.S. title on the flagship show that's on the USA Network. I feel like it's it's perfect. And to me, that's what it always has been about. And the Intercontinental title, to me, it's always been a SmackDown championship. Even though the U.S. title was introduced on SmackDown, I don't know. I feel like the best moments of both titles were when the Intercontinental title was on SmackDown and the U.S. title was on Raw. To me, at least. So that's all I got to say about that. With that being said, rate, comment, favorite, please subscribe, share with your friends, share with everybody, and check out my next video. I'll be talking about something else, and I don't know what that will be, and I don't know when that will be. So take care.